Good evening, good evening, good evening. Welcome to Silhouette of a Queen. Tonight, I have gathered a group of speakers to speak into your life and highlight the foundation and attributes that are valuable and thought-provoking for the nuggets that are the conversation to a queen. We have Joe Patterson, who will be speaking on her segment on Becoming Queen, Fulfilling Her Destiny. And then our next speaker is Donovan Allen. He will be speaking on the power of a queen. And last but not least, we have Lavalle Ezel, who will be speaking on a queen's court. So for my viewers that are already logged on, if you can take a moment to share this with your friends, start a watch party so we can get this party started and going. So thank you for coming in tonight. Okay. All right, so I'm going to give a few of my followers to come in and make themselves settle. If you can go ahead and just start sharing this message, Silhouette of a Queen, go ahead and share it on your pages. Go ahead and start watch parties. I want to get this out to as many women as I possibly can. Call your girlfriend up, text her, your sister, your grandmother, your cousin, grab everyone, your co-worker, because we are going to be having a great conversation on what makes the attributes of a silhouette of a queen. So you don't want to miss this. My name is Tiffany Devon, and I am a wardrobe stylist that styles influencers in fearless fashion. And I just want to take a moment to share with you how Silhouette of a Queen came into being. This was an idea that I've had since 2017. And I had this idea to do this at a hotel this year, but as we all know it, the pandemic kind of derailed some things. And so God laid it upon my heart a couple of weeks ago to go ahead and launch it and go live and take this message and share it this way. And so this is how Silhouette of a Queen was birthed. I just want to just take a moment to explain what a silhouette of a queen is. So if you think of a silhouette, you think of a picture that has yet to be seen, is still developing. And that's what we are as women. We are still developing and taking our rightful ownership in our place that God has called us to be. So we are queens. And so Silhouette of a Queen is a woman that is yet to be seen, that is yet to be felt, and is yet to be heard, but she is still emerging. So for those of you that are not familiar with my testimony and my story, I just want to take a brief moment to share with you my story. My story started in 2012. I had a mental meltdown at my job. And it was so traumatic that they called the police and the paramedics. And I just remember being in this room. It took me into the conference room so that I would be sectioned off from the rest of the workers that were in the building because I was really making a scene. And I remember standing on top of the table as 4 paramedics were in the room pleading with me to get down from the table. And all I wanted at that moment was to be heard. Because for many, many years, I didn't feel like I had a voice. I was always constantly stuffing things down, not being authentic, not being transparent. And so in that moment, I believe what happened was I was carrying generations and generations and generations of women who had yet to be seen, had yet to be felt, had yet to be heard. And so this experience came out through me. And I remember them pleading for me to get down off the table, and I didn't. And so the next thing I know is that I'm on the ground, them pinning me down, trying to sedate me. And then they handcuffed me, escorted me out of the building, put me in the back of a police car, and admitted me to psychiatric care. It was the most traumatic, embarrassing, humiliating moment that I ever had in my entire life. And when I was released from psychiatric care, and I was off work for about a month, I was walking through the store one day and I heard the voice of God say to me, "You're going to have to go back and you're going to have to face your fears." And I said, "What? What are you talking about, God? What do you mean?" And God said, "Absolutely nothing." So I had to return back to the place where I was humiliated, where I was thinking, what are they going to think about me? They're going to think I'm bipolar. They're going to think I'm schizophrenic. Like, I just never wanted to go back. But what God was showing me during that time was that I needed to get over what people thought about me, because I was so consumed with my image of how I projected myself to the world and how I came across to the world. So I would rather suffer than show you the real me. And so God really took me on this journey for 7 years where I would have to go to counseling several times. I went to church, I journaled, I did everything imaginable to try to get myself to a place of wholeness. So for me to be sitting here before you this evening really is a miracle, because that moment should have halted me. And as I think about it, when I was in that room, that 4x4 cemented wall room with the cot in the middle of the floor, you would have never made me think that anything beautiful would have been birthed out of that situation. There was absolutely nothing pretty about being in that place. I mean, I know you now, you see the tiara, you see the hair, you see the makeup, you see the lashes, and it looks so really pretty. It looks so beautiful, but you didn't know the ugly, that I had to get over of what people were going to say about me. And so now that I am out and I am able to wear my crown, I'm now turning back and I'm pulling some other women up out of the trenches, which is why I want to help you and say, uh-oh, my crown is tilted. And I'm going to help you fix that. So when we talk about this, there are 3 main points that I want to share with you tonight when it comes to image. There's your image, there's God's image, and then there's culture's image. And so when we think about this, your image and culture's image is always going to go to war with God's image, because God's image requires that you be transparent. It requires that you be vulnerable. And those are the 2 attributes that, and humble at the same time, but those are attributes that most of us don't want to walk in, because vulnerability requires a level of disrobing yourself. It's saying to that other person that I don't have it all together. And so that's what I had to learn. So when we think about our image, we want to ask ourselves this question: where does this come from? Your image can come from the way that you were raised. Were you raised in a single parent home? Were you raised with both parents? Were both of them in the home? Did they give you attention? Did they not give you attention? What was your friendships like as you were growing up? The relationships that you had. And depending on where you are in your life's journey, those collection of experiences can play into how you see yourself. And then we're not even going to talk about what culture says women should be, because culture tells us that if you want to be a boss woman, if you want to make boss moves, you got to lead with your sexuality. Because see, again, that counter, it doesn't go with God's image. And so I would highly suggest to you that after this is over, that you really step back and begin to ask yourself a series of questions. Who am I? Who did God say I am. Because when we look at women that have come before us, God has always chosen a woman from every generation to lead the charge for something great and to lead for a change. When we look at women like Harriet Tubman, who couldn't read, but yet she led thousands of slaves to freedom. And then old Rosa Parks, she was tired, as the old folks say. She was tired and she was not getting up and not giving up her seat. And so she led a change for the civil rights movement. And many women today that are leading charges for the Black Lives Matter movement. Let's not forget them as well. So women, it is time for us to take our place. And in order to do so, we have to start shedding these old layers of who we think we are. We've got to do the work, because the longer that you put off the work, the more that you have to do. And I believe that with this segment, Silhouette of a Queen, and the speakers that are here tonight, they're going to help you how to start doing that. So grab your pen and your notepad, and we're just going to have a great time. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to my first speaker of the evening, Miss Jo Patterson. She is self-employed as a contracted enrichment program director through Big Thought Thriving Minds After School, the Dallas City of Learning and Young Women's Leadership, Prep and Academy, and her own enrichment programs, Epic Domain LLC for boys and girls, and Saris Girls Incorporated. Through innovative and exciting teaching, praise and worship, hands-on activities, engaging fellowship, and life application, Jo has successfully launched a girls ministry conference enrichment program that will inspire exuberant life, bring healing and deliverance, and equip and empower young girls to be the best, most authentic version of themselves, the girl God created them to be. To date, she has held 7 hugely successful conferences and spoken locally at charter schools and held enrichment programs nationally. Now, without further ado, becoming queen, fulfilling her destiny.
Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for allowing me to share what God has laid on my heart. And thank you so much to Tiffany Palmer. Thank you for this wonderful occasion and for that brilliant introduction. For those of you that know me, I am the founder and CEO of Saris Girls, Inc., and a few other organizations that I partner with as well. But tonight I want to speak specifically to becoming queen and fulfilling her destiny. This portion of the segment got laid on my heart something years ago in 2013, after the birth of my own daughter in 2003. And God shared with me a vision of how he wanted me, and these are his words to me specifically, to speak destiny into the hearts of his daughters. And I took that mandate very seriously. So in giving this assignment, I looked at all of the different things that make us up as a queen. It seems like queen is seemingly the end objective. It's always the place that we want to be. But there's a lot of training and preparation that goes into becoming that queen. And it starts with the little girl inside of us. Now, I don't want to just stay there, but it's very important, because most importantly is who we are as God's creation. So I want to just give you a few tips and a few things that God showed me in studying for this particular message. And I really thought it interesting that we can either be a princess by birth as God's daughter, I'm using the term princess, by adoption, when you're adopted into a royal family, or by marriage, you marry or become the consort of a prince or a king. So since this is the ministry that I specifically deal with, which is ministering to young girls, ministering to girls 5 to 15, I minister to teenage girls, and of course, women and mothers in their relationship to their daughters. So what's important is the healing that goes on at the foundation. If we don't handle things properly at the root, sometimes things can go awry as that young princess gets older. So I don't want to talk about as we see in the book of Esther, this woman that's being groomed for the palace and for palace life. But I want to talk about the girl, the daughter that's born into this royal family, this monarchy, because we are all daughters of the king. So the problem that happens with a lot of us is not having that understanding or that recognizing who we are in him as his daughters. We come into the world, we're born into this present situation, whatever that is. And sometimes those situations are good. Sometimes those situations are not so good. For me, I was born to my mother and father, both married, having an older brother, and I was their baby girl. And through marital issues and strife, my parents divorced when I was 2 years old. And as women sometimes do, they had their issues, and for whatever reason, I was kept from having that relationship with my biological father. So I have a personal beef with my sisters who, without provocation and without serious situations, because I understand there are some situations where that's best for the child. But when it's done out of malice and spite, if it's done out of just having some type of antagonistic way against that male, there I have a problem with it, because it is so critically important, the voice of a father in a daughter's life. And I just want to go to some of my notes. As a child who grew up without the presence of my father in my daily life, I came to know my father when I was 16 years old. So we're existing, we're both in the same city. I don't know where he is. I believe he knew where I was, but because of that, relationship was not able to get to me. And so I grew up with life challenges and having to navigate a world without the presence of, and always missed and always longed for, wanting to have the hands of my father on my life, having to speak into my life, having to guide me and to touch me and to, just do all those things that fathers do, that when we see other girls grow up in life and they're daddy's little girls and they're treated like princesses and they're taken different places and they ride on their daddy's shoulders. Well, I was not, I was deprived that myself. So I understand, and I wanted to set the premise of saying that not every girl has the same set of circumstances. Even today, my heart wept for the little baby Gianna, the daughter of George Floyd. And I see that there are many people that surround her. And I just want to digress for a moment. People that surround her and that's covering her and that are there to guide her along the way. But oh, would it have not been wonderful for that little girl to have the presence of her father, to be able to hear her daddy's voice, to be able to have his correction and his leadership and his guidance, and to be able to know that her daddy, which she had that just a few weeks ago, but through circumstances out of her control, now she's deprived that situation. So all of those things shape and mold us as women, from these little girls, from these teenagers, whether you have a great situation and you have your father in your life and he's there to guide you along the way. Sometimes that's not everybody's story. And I wanted to be sympathetic to that. A princess is simply a woman having sovereign power, a female member of a royal family, especially a daughter or a granddaughter of a sovereign, the consort of a wife or a prince. But again, we're speaking to daughters. So that caused me to realize something very critical. As God, our creator, is the maker of all things, we are royalty from birth. The only issue is not all of us come into this world with the ability to recognize that. So it is so critical at those tender ages, at those ages of innocence, for God to surround us or to send people into our lives who are able to speak value and worth, to our God esteem in Him, showing us who we are in Him. If that's something that you were denied naturally so, thank God He has the ability to give it to us spiritually so. So why becoming queen? Becoming queen. Because, like my sister said before, we are trained for some reason to want the power, to want the position, to want the accolades and the affirmation of being a woman in leadership, a boss lady, somebody that's moving and shaking and doing things. But a lot of times we want to assume the position without having the training, without having the protocol, without being brought up in the correct way. And so it can often hinder or affect our motives. And so those women that we see, not all of them, but some of them haven't gone through their proper training and protocol. Some of them have not been skilled in the ways of a princess and taught the ways of the Lord. And I'll just share a little bit of information as I go forward. God said, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. I appointed you as a prophet to the nations. And that's Jeremiah 1:5. Knowing who you are in him, regardless of your station in life, is so critical. That's when his daughters are the most vulnerable. So education, information, having godly counsel and mentorship are critical lest you lose your way. Once she understands or the child has come to a reckoning of who she is, her responsibilities, her role as the daughter of a king, she must be groomed for her life's work. Her life's work in the royal times or in the monarchy, sometimes the princesses are given the roles of humanitarian work or charity. They're taught to touch the people of the kingdom, how to be kind, how to be generous, how to feel, how to show empathy and warmth and courage. She is developed in her education. And so I'm speaking spiritually, both spiritually she's developed and she's developed naturally in her education. It is very important for young girls, for teen girls, for young women, for women. Educate yourself. Never come to a place of always of feeling that you have learned it all, that you know it all, that there's no more learning for you. Be forever teachable. Have a teachable spirit where someone can speak into your life and come alongside of you and show you something maybe you didn't know or enhance the things that you already knew. You must always remain teachable. And she has assignments. She goes wherever the king says go. So these are just some of the things that a young princess can encounter in her tutelage and growing up in the palace. She's trained in etiquette. She knows how to engage others in the world, how she is to come and go within the palace and within the kingdom. She is given governesses, mentors, teachers, wise women, and tutors to show her the right way to walk and lead her in paths of righteousness. So when you have the advantage of starting young, you can train up a child in the way that she should go. And I'll say this, that scripture is often translated or meant to be understood to make that child or help that child, because God is the only one who determines the way that she should go. That's determined before the foundation of the world. But it's for parents and for those godly mentors and those to come alongside of her. That training is to raise the child up in their natural bent. So there's an African proverb that says that it's hard to bend a tree while it's young, while it's old, when it's old. So the most formative years are those tender years of early education, of early childhood, and middle school and intermediate school. That's a small window we have to reach into the lives of our girls, because you're born a princess, you're born a princess, you're born royalty, you're born into this household of faith, and you're given those responsibilities and those royal attributes. As I speak about attributes, I also want to say this quickly. It's not always, I'll say more importantly, it's not that a princess is beautiful on the outside. Disney has duped us all. So we see the Disney fairy tales. And a lot of times the princess is the fairest in the land and the most beautiful in the land. And her dress is pretty and her hair is pretty and everything about her is beautiful. And a lot of times we leave young ladies, little girls, feeling that their beauty or the thing of worth is what we see externally. And so therefore, a lot of times the things on the inside get forsaken or they take second place when actually they're the most important thing in that child's life. Becoming queen, becoming queen. Becoming a queen happens long before. There's no in between. There's no title in between being God's daughter. You are that as an heir. God has given you that role as an heir. But becoming queen, everyone says, well, what is the age of a queen? In doing some study, I saw that Queen Victoria of England became queen at the age of 13. I saw that Queen Elizabeth became queen at the age of 25 after the death of her father. So there is no age here you turn 25. A lot of times it's the hierarchy of the monarchy. And I want us to look at this with spiritual ears and spiritual eyes. There's no determining factor that determines when you become queen. Why is that? And God showed me it's according to your maturity. It's according to your faith. It's according to your ability to believe in the God who has called you. You're a daughter at birth. You're a princess at birth. But we're not necessarily a queen at birth. That's something we grow into. That's something we mature into. Did you notice that all of the attributes of her external appearances have nothing to do with her heart? God is looking at your heart. You determine when you become queen. Fulfilling your destiny, that's up to you as well. If you're willing to follow God's heart, to follow the path that He set for you, to do things in the season and the times that He's given to you, after you've received your training, after you've properly grown up in the ways of God, then there's every bit of a room for you as a young woman in her 20s, as a young woman in her 30s, as a young woman in her 40s, as a young woman in her 50s even. You're forever a daughter of the King. But becoming queen is determined by you. Isn't that something? One other scripture I'd like to share with you, and I got a little bit of my head ahead of myself, is that God is watching our development. God is watching our temperament. He's watching our attitude when things don't necessarily go our way. He wants to make sure that our hearts are prepared and ready for Him, that we don't run to our room and close the door and have tantrums, that we don't contemplate when things don't go our way, that we want to chunk it all and just forget about it because it didn't happen in our time and our season. Becoming queen. Becoming queen is in your hands, woman of God. You're forever His daughter. You're always His princess. But those rights and responsibilities to rule and to reign alongside of Him is completely up to you. It's when you determine that you are mature enough to handle the things of God, and in turn, to give those meaty things, those weightier things, to those that God has brought into your path. I'm not sure where I am in my time, but I just want to leave you with this. In becoming a queen, and there's so much more information that I wanted to share, but I want to be mindful of our other speakers. Do this part. On this end of your training, of learning protocol, of learning etiquette. And I pray that God will continue to send godly women, wonderful women and men into your life who are going to speak life to you, who are going to encourage you, who are going to help in your training and in your development. But you've got to want it. You've got to want the help that God is sending your way. When do you become queen? When you mature in the things of God and you yield to His Spirit and His plan and His work in your life. It's so easy for a child to receive from God. Oftentimes a little blanket or a bed sheet can easily become a royal robe. In one cardboard box, that young lady can shuttle to the moon as an astronaut. Our hearts are open, they're innocent, they're pure to God. And a lot of times He reveals mysteries to babes because of that, to those that are young at heart. So don't lose that passion for God. Don't lose the wonder. Don't lose your faith in Him. God said that He counted unto Abraham in Hebrews 11, He accounted it unto him as his faith because he believed God. He accounted it to him as righteousness because he believed God. That's what I'm saying to you, woman of God. In becoming a queen, believe God. Believe Him first, but watch your motives. Make sure your heart is pure. Make sure you desire the King, his presence, his will for your life more than you desire the things that come with the kingdom. He's giving you the keys to the kingdom. But are you mature enough to drive it? Are you mature enough to lead? Are you mature enough to handle the things of God? Always this princess, but becoming queen is determined by you. And I pray that God will help you each and every day to fulfill your destiny in him. That's my prayer. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you, Tiffany.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Joe. That is so beautiful. You know, there were several takeaways from becoming queen, fulfilling her destiny. I heard always remain teachable, you know, learning etiquette, mentor. And I think, you know, we think sometimes that mentoring is just reserved for younger women, but that's not true. You know, you can seek a mentor at 40, at 50, and 60. So thank you so much for sharing that with us and helping us to choose the right way to walk, and that becoming queen is up to us. All right, so our next speaker tonight is Donovan Allen. He is a teacher and founder of Outside the Walls, DFW. This evangelistic ministry is dedicated to bringing biblical content and restoration to people outside the walls of the church. Donovan is a graduate with a Bachelor of Arts in Ministry and Leadership at Dallas Christian College. He is currently pursuing a Master in Divinity and Theology at Liberty University. Donovan has had the opportunity to preach and teach in Colorado, New Mexico, Texas, Oklahoma, Honduras, and Guatemala. He is committed to the gospel message going forward throughout the world, and he's going to be sharing with us the power of a queen.
Amen, amen, amen. Hey, first off, thank you so much for having me. And I want to say this and give a disclaimer. No matter how old I get, or no matter how much wisdom I have, I'll never understand the intricacies of a woman. So I want to give a disclaimer. Any information that I do disseminate does not mean that I have a presupposition about the fullness of what a woman is. I believe that there's no completion to a man understanding a woman, because she's meant to be explored every day, not mastered. Because that's a direct indication of how God made her. Otherwise, if there was an ending to understanding her, since men are natural hunters, once we get done hunting and get what we want, we stop the hunt. So there's a forever pursuit of your spouse, right? Of the woman that you're trying to love. But I do want to give some biblical context of what I see when I look at scripture on what a queen is, and what I notice is her power. Being a 35-year-old male raised by mother and a grandmother, and having an aunt and having a twin sister, I've been able to see women relate and communicate and move on many different levels. But one of the things I noticed, even in a time of tragedy, even in a time of perseverance, even in a time of jubilation, happiness, or organization or disorganization, is a woman's power or her lack of direction and moving to it. And one of the things I want to define with that, when we talk about power, is that I want to give a brief definition of that. Power is always defined as the ability to complete a common goal or task that's been set out before you. That's what power is. We know that power comes from Christ, because John chapter 1 says this: to those that trusted and believed and relied on God, he gave them the right and the privilege and the power to become children of God. So that immediately places the power of God at the antithesis of salvation. But I noticed something really, really cool when we were talking about the silhouette of a woman and a queen and chess pieces. On an actual chessboard versus checkers and chess, the whole goal is to capture the king. But we don't really place an emphasis when you're playing chess on the king. We watch out for the queen. Why do we do this? It's the most powerful piece on the board. Why? Because this particular piece can actually move 27 different directions in order to protect the kingdom. Catch what I just said. This one piece can move 27 different directions in order to protect the kingdom. What that means is that a woman's unique design is to protect and guide the destiny in her helpmate and help guide the nations with her spouse and her husband. And I'll provide some biblical context for that in Genesis. That's 27 different places. We're not talking about the pawns. We're not talking about the knights. We're not talking about the kings. We're specifically talking about the queen. 27 different positions. One of the things that I noticed with that when we're dealing with that, I go back to Genesis and we talk about Adam being made in the image of God. We always talk about the woman biting the apple and then the curse and everything falling through. We know the general from that, but sometimes we can miss small little minutia or small details that make a sum total of the issues we have in the Bible. One of the things I noticed is that when God did create Adam, there was a garden, which means there was work to do. There was an assignment because he told him to name the animals in the garden. But one of the things I know is that when he created Eve, then God gave them his destiny. His destiny was not given before Eve. It was given after Eve was created, which was to subdue, right, have dominion, and multiply, which lets me know that multiplication and destination cannot happen in the absence of a queen. It only moves and flows through the presence of one. And that's in 27 different directions. We talk about having dominion. It's not just in one place. That's a powerful statement to make, because that means that Adam said he was lonely after he was completing his assignment. Some translations can say he was lonely, but the reality is that he was still looking for his destiny. And so when he went into a deep sleep, right, and God took part of his rib to actually form Eve, he says, whoa, wow. The Bible says immediately Adam knew Eve, which we equate that with sexual intercourse, but I want to pay attention to something. I would go ahead and say that he knew how Eve moved. He knew how she moved in her structure, how she moved in her thought process, how she was going to be able to direct him in his weaknesses, how in times of hard and frustration, how he was going to be able to operate a kingdom. He needed her power, the ability to complete a common goal or task that's been set out before you. So what's the significance of actually dealing with this, right? There's multiple illustrations in the Bible of women leading, and then what happens when you don't have women leadership and as the manipulation of it, right? So you're talking about the presence of leading, like an example of a woman like Esther, whose primary example and task and her power, because of her intimacy, watch this, and her bravery and her eagerness to be able to go and sit in front of the king in order to save a whole kingdom. That's a power move. That's a different position. Remember, I talked about 27 different positions. She was in one position based on her ethnicity and where she was at, but she was able to move up certain hierarchies to be able to give advice to save a nation. It was a woman, it wasn't a man. But you also look at other scripture, you look at Jezebel. So you see Jezebel's tactics and moves to actually try to direct the nation to destroy. So you have one built off the intimacy of God for leadership, and then one predicated on manipulation. This is the primary example of why a queen doesn't lead with her body. Because when she leads with her body, she gives the primary intention that she's leading with manipulation to move and woo a man. But what you woo, you have to sustain and keep. But sustaining and keeping is never supposed to be coming from her. It's supposed to become who her allegiance is tied to, which is Christ. So we go back even into the New Testament. I love how Paul writes his scriptures to the Corinthian church. And when he's writing to the Corinthian church, and you see scriptures in Acts, he's giving exhortations to a woman. Why? Because most of the church, when it was built in the Corinthian church, the woman was an evangelist, and it was because of her leadership that actually led the church. And he was writing the letter actually appealing to the different issues that were going on in the church. But you see his immediate addressing to the strength and the power that it took for her to actually lead that church. I'm saying that to lead to this because one of the things that when I was talking with Tiffany, we were talking about the idea of a power of a queen. We know that her power is only as deep as her intimacy to her father. Her power is only as deep as her intimacy to her father. What does that mean? Because she's a nurturer, because she's an incubator, because she's a multiplier, because she's a strategist, because she can hear certain things in the realm that can give advice that can change nations. It's very, very, very important that she hear for something that's foundational, that won't manipulate, that loves, that's unconditional, that's always there, that's present, that provides an actual good representation of what leadership, love, integrity, character, bravery, and honesty is. And the greatest example of that is Christ Jesus. But the present, right? The present example is men as fathers. Where there's an absence of male leadership as a father, there can become a presence of manipulation in a woman as she matures. Somebody missed that. I love what one of my favorite rappers, The Truth, says. He says, we don't believe in karma. You know when the deceit of a father can affect the seed of his daughter. His deceit and his inability to lead actually affects the nurture, the maturation, the growth, and the leadership of a woman who will then give birth and lead alongside her king in a family. And so when you look at how society downplays that, and you look at what's going on today, it's very easy to draw a dichotomy between some of the brokenness that some women may be dealing with and the absence of what they did not get from their father. Because women are natural nurturers, in order for them to nurture something, they will seek to fill that gap in order to move to the next level. So that means that they will seek to fill that which the husband or the father or whoever didn't provide. That is the reason why it's very, very, very current, even in this generation right now, for a woman to be intimate with Christ. What does that look like? For me as a man, I can tell you from an example, I still live off some of the prayers of my grandmother. There are some prayers that she has prayed and some things that she has said to God in her intimacy, in her prayer closet with no one else around her, and interceding, which means standing in a gap over my life, that have caused me to be where I am right now by the grace of God, because of her petitions, because of her heart to be able to hear the Father. There's something about that intimacy and that quietness, that still small voice of being able to hear. One of the things I noticed about my mother is her attention to detail. I will notice a wide variety of different things, but she will notice small details before they happen. I'm going to a football game. She has a first aid kit. She has food. She has clothes for after the game. She has preparations of what's going to happen when we get done. She's strategic. She has planned my day without me even getting up out of bed before I even get there. And even when I get ready to, when I injured myself, she said, Dad, I got a Band-Aid that's in the car. Make sure you look here in the glove compartment. She's so meticulous. I'm like, how does she know to keep a first aid kit? She says, just in case. So even her thought process to be able to move ahead 27 directions. Remember, we talked about this, to be able to be on protection and have a hindsight, a foresight, and a present knowledge on how to operate. The Bible in Proverbs 31 says the woman is known at the gates. That means that when her husband is moving in high gates of influence, she's known in places of trade and agriculture and wealth. That means she's well-versed and educated, as one of my sisters in the Lord spoke about a while ago, and very knowledgeable of key issues and patterns that are bringing and tearing down society. So it's no longer an excuse to be ignorant. A queen also moves in intelligence. And I will say this, when we get to that second level, when you were talking about a queen moving and being strong, a lot of people, when you get older in age and you say, well, my father wasn't there when I was younger, or there was a certain age and I'm broken, I'm still trying to heal. There's nothing wrong with healing. Remember this, as a queen, you understand that when you were younger, you were the sum total of your environment. Meaning you couldn't choose what happened to you. But as you mature, a queen understands in maturation, she is now a sum total of the decisions that she chooses to make. So that means she no longer allows what held her down, what kept her in bondage, the words, the criticisms of different people to keep her down. She moves forward knowing that the decisions that she makes based on the intimacy that she has in Christ, that God will correct what Satan was trying to come in and ruin in his perfection in the beginning. She knows that. And it's all built on her intimacy, but that happens in power. I'm starting to notice right now that there is a gap between the ages of 13 and 19 as women become to mature. We know women do mature faster than men. We just don't get it. We get it later on in life, but it's just, you guys move at a faster pace us in terms of comprehension and understanding. We notice that sex trafficking is at an alarming rate at the highest moment of development between those ages. Catch what I just said. Sex trafficking is at an all-time high in that particular gap at the highest age of development in a woman. That's at an alarming rate. because it's seeking to manipulate, extort, right, and paint a false image that in order to be accepted, protected, guided, loved, endeared, and reverenced, you have to look a certain way, dress a certain way, talk a certain way, act a certain way, be in a certain society, be in a certain group, create all these different accomplishments. A queen knows her power and her presence is also in silence because she doesn't speak to everyone around her. She only speaks to the person in the room who has the power and the ability to guide direction at everyone. So when a woman walks into the room, she doesn't go to everyone. She goes to the person directly in power. That's only by a woman. That's why when a woman walks into a room and you feel the aura and you feel her presence and you see her hips and you see her curves and you see her smile and you see her makeup, you notice her physical characteristics first. And once it grabs your attention, her words and her intellect grab your affection. And once that grabs your affection, you'll do whatever she's saying it needs to get done and you'll get it done. And that's throughout scripture. That's how most of us as men, when we get married or we decide to have spouses and wives, we look for that. Because if you lead with your body, you can't keep a husband, a kingdom, and a family with it because your bodies are designed to break down. We will get older, right? We're not going to be the same 15 and 19 and 21 and 27-year-old. But the one thing that always grows, as a woman's intimacy increases, as her maturation increases, as her intellect increases, as her ability to submit herself to the Father, it builds a greater distinction, a greater conduit, and a greater vessel for God to move in. I find it so amazing when I'm looking at women and I see daughters and I'm looking at everything, that when I hear women talk and they talk about what they struggle with and what they deal with, the second part I want to go back to is they say, well, I didn't get this from my father, or my father wasn't missing. And so I'm seeking a carbon copy of something that was supposed to complete me. And because I see that, my perception of Christ and how I view scripture is flawed. So now I look at Christ where I have to complete and be a certain way and do a certain thing and act a certain way and to become. But the power of a queen, as she matures, she knows that it's not her that completes her, it's Christ. God is the one that pours in you. God is the one that gives you insight. God is the one that gives you wisdom. God is the one that gives you direction. And the reality with that is, as man reaches his destination, he needs a woman to be able to see in 27 different directions in order to move forward. Because here's the deal, it's not just about right now, it's about producing a legacy. When we talk about 27 different directions, we also talk about kingdom transferring directions. So it's about your children's children. So her foresight to be able to say, if we make this decision now, what does this look like for our children's children? Have you thought about this? Have you considered this? Her consideration to intricate details as she hears from the Father helps a man avoid certain pit traps, certain snares, certain falls. And it only gives me, as I look at it right now in detail, it only gives me the one presupposition or supposition I can think of. There's something about the strength of a woman that changes a nation. Did you know half of the marches right now that are led or internally organized by women? It's not men. Most of the detail, I'm being serious. Most of the organizational development that you see, the minds of the women are leading it. It's the men that are going to the foreground and moving forward and what you see in the culture, but it's the women that are behind the scenes actually pushing the man and bagging him up. Because even though a man, and you hear the context that a man is the head, but the woman is the neck. She directs. Amen. And so a woman's only able to direct as a queen when she can see in multiple directions, which means that her perceptions have to be healed. That means that she has to understand that she's not a piece of meat to be bought. She's not a chess piece to be manipulated, right? She's not a person to be subjected to. She's not a person. She's not a trophy piece. Amen. She's not a side piece. She's not somebody on the rebound. She's not a broken woman. She's not the attention of what she didn't get when she was younger. Rather, she's the affection of what Christ died for, as salvation. That's a different thing that I want you to hold on to right there. She understands that everything she is, who she will become, and everything that's in her comes from Christ, the hope of glory. And because she understands that, her power, the ability to complete everything, is given to her through him. And when she submitted like that, that strength partner with the direction of a man who submitted to God in context, what Ephesians talks about us loving our wives like Christ loved the church, and a woman actually submitting to you. See, a woman is not submitting to a woman. A queen doesn't submit to her husband because of his position. She submits to her husband because of his submission to someone higher than him. So she notices the characteristics and the things that a guy deals with, that a man deals with, even in his submission to Christ, and she submits to that. Any delineation outside of that is manipulation. And a woman will call that out. Why? Because she can see in 27 different directions. And so I wanted to bring light to that. I wanted to bring love to that. I wanted to bring peace to that. Even in a time right now where we have a person that passed away with George Floyd and his daughter that's going to grow up. And she's going to grow up without her father. But here's the reality. God always has certain things in place to be able to provide. And so I want to be able to speak to that in this context right now to say, women, that you are loved, you're protected, we value you, we honor you. We thank you for being a foundation in which we move based on your submission to God. We thank you for your leadership. We thank you for your integrity. You matter to us. You're not a body part. You're not for sale. Amen. You're not to be, you're meant to be loved. We care for you and we love you no matter what your age is. And remember, a queen is just a position. It's not an age. So you can be a queen at any age. And it's our job as men to speak that into our daughters. And it's also the women's job at different ages to pour that into women younger than them so we can move forward. And that's my prayer for you guys in terms of understanding what the power of a queen is. Amen.
Wow, thank you so much for that. Is my crown still on? You were walking heavy. Wow. Thank you so much for that, Donovan. Again, for the viewers that are watching, these are some very powerful points that I just kind of want to just recap what he just said. He said, the queen is the most powerful piece in the game, and she can move 27 different directions. And the only way that a woman can really be able to make power moves is if she has intimacy with the Father. And so really, I mean, as a queen, it's really setting aside that time daily to be able to hear him, to get daily downloads of how he wants you to move, how he wants you to be, because things are shifting. And so we always need to be in constant communion with the Father. So thank you so much for that. And just that last nugget of we protect and guide the kingdom. So that was really, really, that was needed. Thank you so much for sharing that. I want to go in and go ahead and announce our last speaker for the night, Miss Lavalle Ezel. She is a certified life coach, sisterhood strategist, international motivational speaker, and blogger. Her fire for healthy friendships amongst women birthed a movement called Striving in Sisterhood, where she conducts workshops, conferences, and special events for girls and women in the Dallas-Fort Worth area and surrounding states. She created the Sister Sit and Chat experience for self-discovery, relationship strategies, maturity in the levels of friendship, accountability, and purpose. She teaches and walks the lifestyle of authentic sisterhood and believes that self-worth inspires sisterhood. Lavalle shares her wealth of knowledge and expertise to several platforms weekly, and she is going to be talking about a Queen's Court. Take it away.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much again, Tiffany, for having me as one of your guests. Man, tonight, you guys have filled me up while I'm sitting here waiting to speak to everyone else. And I just want to just say, Tiffany, I am so proud of you for starting this movement of teaching women to learn what their silhouette of a queen is becoming, because it's not an easy journey and we need more voices, more women showing. And I'm saying, being transparent and saying, you see me as a queen now, but I wasn't always a queen. And that process is not easy. And so myself, Joe, and Tiffany, we all are those women that have said to the king, I am going to be a woman that I go and show another woman how to become a queen. So tonight, I just want to share my heart with you guys. I'm just going to also just collectively, the words that have already been spoken, to just enhance them to another level on the platform that God has anointed me to speak on, which is sisterhood. Sisterhood is one of those things that since I was a little girl, I've always wanted special friends that I could just connect with. And that started, I don't even know where it came from. I just wanted a best friend. You know, just as little girls, we always want those things, and we want someone to communicate with, to grow up with, and to talk with. And that's just some of the things that never goes away, because as we commune with other women is how we develop. And so as we're talking about a queen in her court, that is something that is necessary. It's not even optional. A queen cannot do anything by herself. It's just like the chessboard. She needs every piece to help her in the process. One of the things that I did see about the chess pieces is that, I didn't realize this, but as I was, studying and bringing this message, and God was giving me different pieces and things to talk about, I did not realize that a pawn can become a queen. I was like, really? The pawn is the piece that's the smallest piece. There's a line of pawns. If you play chess, there's a line of pawn, and they only can move one space. And even Donovan was talking about the queen can move 27 spaces. So you're telling me that a pawn that can only move one space, forward, backward, or to the side, can become a queen? That in itself spoke volumes to me. So I want you to keep thinking about, sometimes we think that we see a pawn, or we think that we're a woman that has no influence or no power because we haven't arrived. We don't have everything that, we're supposed to have. We feel like we're behind time. We should have done this. We should have done that. I should have been married. I should have gotten my education. That might be true, but it's not going to stop you from walking into your destiny. Like Joe was saying, you always have an opportunity to change your mind, to make new decisions. And number one, as we talk about the court, allow God, the king, to connect you with other women that are striving to do the same thing. So even in my own testimony, with these two ladies that are on the panel, and they will be a witness, we have been walking and growing into another level of queens for years. So as you walk with other women, if you see a woman that you deem she looks like a queen, she's making queen moves, you might want to go talk to her. You might want to hear her story, because her story is going to encourage you to do the same thing. Because as you become a queen, it is a decision that you have to make, that I want to become a queen. Like Joe was saying, like Donovan was saying, it is something that you have to strive for. It's not something that happens on accident. So as God is, I'm going to say as not you, but as God is gathering your courts, think about all of the attributes that you need right now to move into your destiny. As Joe was speaking before, what does your destiny look like? What is that going to require? What Donovan was talking about, the intimacy with God. Only God knows what your destiny is. And when you make a decision that, God, I want to know what my destiny is, I want to become that queen, you start stepping forward. You open your heart to the women that he's going to bring into your life to help you get there. Because in sisterhood, everyone has strengths and weaknesses. We all don't have it all. We all have a strength, but we also have those weaknesses. Let's be real. So in those strengths, in those weaknesses, God is going to send people in your courts to help you get sharpened. Because what does the Bible say? It says iron sharpens iron. And so you have to be ready, you have to be prepared, and you have to be willing to do the work. Because as these women come to you in your life, they are going to sharpen you and sparks are going to happen. But what are you going to do? Are you going to run away? Are you going to say it's too hard? Guess what? You're not going to become that queen that God has designed for you to come if you do that. So when God brings your court, those people, those women in your court, they are going to sharpen you, mind, body, and spirit. Not one woman can be in your court. There's going to be several women that come into your life that are going to help you become queen. So you have a decision. What are you going to do? Are you ready to become queen? Are you ready to do the work? Are you ready to learn to communicate? Are you ready to be able to walk in those 27 positions that Donovan spoke of? Are you ready? Because when we talk about sisterhood, you have to be ready. And that was one of the things that God told me. And I thought, well, God, that's gonna mean that some women are not gonna be a part of this. He said, no. When we talk about biblical sisterhood and them following me and being obedient to what I am asking them to do and become, it's a choice. You can't, God is not going to go against your will. He is not going to drag you, but he will send people to encourage you. He will send people to walk with you and to complement you and where your destiny is going. So in your court, they're going to help you to prepare, like Esther was prepared. There were different women in that kingdom that prepared her for different things. Her inner beauty, her outer beauty, and even just her desire to go before the queen had to be together in order for her to get to accomplish what God is calling her to do to save the nation. So question is, are you ready to become the queen that God has called you to be? Are you ready to have the courts that God is designing for you? Because as you open your heart to him, those women will appear right before your eyes. Some of those women they're around you right now. You just have not recognized it because you haven't made the decision, I want to be the queen that God is calling me to be. And I will give witness. Joe has been in my life for over 17 years. Okay, about 17 years. And she has been one that has stretched me to grow in my destiny. She has been there to support me, whether it was in the natural when I had my children, give me all types of insight and wisdom as a woman. Spiritually, if I call her at 2 o'clock in the morning and I say I need prayer, she is ready. She will wake up out of her sleep and she will pray with me. As a wife, she will encourage me. Okay, and that's because she has become a queen. So she actually can do a lot of different things, but it comes with time. Tiffany is another one of those women who are in my courts. She gets me together, y'all. She gets me together in a lot of different ways. We have strengths and weaknesses in different areas, and we strengthen each other. So I just wanted to give you some real examples of what it looks like to have a court that God has designed. So I'm going to leave you with this. Are you ready to strive in sisterhood? If you are, God is waiting on you. Thank you, Tiffany.
Thank you so much for that, a queen's court. I really wanted to touch on what you were saying about iron sharpens iron and sparks will fly, because a lot of times we get excited when we hear that scripture, iron sharpens iron, woo, until it goes, and that person says something to tick you off and they bruise your ego and all that stuff. But it's for your good. And so you have to understand the heart of the woman behind why she said what she said. And so that is so true. And ladies that are watching this evening, even my gentlemen that are watching, you have to make the decision to be the queen. At this time, we are going to open it up for Q&A. If you have a question for myself or any of my panel speakers, now is the time to go ahead and drop your comments, your questions in the comment section, and we'll answer that for you. But as we give them time to go ahead and enter their questions into the chat here, I really want to say we don't take the climate that our world is in right now, and is in such a state of unrest. We're in the middle of a pandemic. We're also in the middle of protests for George Floyd. We want to be mindful of that. And as queens too, it's very important that we guard our mental health and because that affects our emotional health as well. And I know that we want to keep abreast of what's going on, and we have to be on social media all the time. We have to have the news on all the time. And I have been reading so many different posts where people are just really, they're feeling it. They're feeling the anxiety of everything that's going on in the world. And so I just would charge you this evening is daily, just take 8 minutes and 46 seconds just to log off of everything, you know, because we want to do that in honor of him. And as we do that, we will continue to lift up his memory, and also know too that queens, you are called for such a time as this. Your position may not necessarily be in the streets protesting and marching. Yours may be in the boardroom making decisions and sitting next to the decision makers, going into corporations. Every sphere of influence, we need you. We need you in the entertainment industry. They need to see that a woman can prosper with her clothes on, okay? We need you in education. We need you in religion. We need you in politics. We need you everywhere where there's a spirit society, queens, we need you. And we're calling you to come out. You gotta shake off where you've been so that you can go to the next level. And I am such a testament of God really grooming me for the last 7 years to get to this space. It's been a behind the scenes wrestling and tussling on the floor, crying, you know, my crown was a little tilted, you know, that's okay. He can still use you. And so I just wanted to take the time to share that with you. And as we continue to go forward, do we have any questions here? Let's see. One of the questions, anyone can answer this, is how can I help other young girls that aren't mine become queens?
Oh, you know, I love that. I don't mean to presume anything, but I do want to speak to that. If you feel that you have something significant to give, one thing my husband and I have been talking about when he says it's safety in the multitude of counsel. Yeah. He did some research, and it wasn't necessarily lots of counsel from lots of different people, but more the safety in the multitude. The multitude was the multitude of sound counsel. If that's from 2 or 3, we're just said in the mouth of 2 to 3 witnesses, or, you know, where 2 or 3 are gathered, there I am in the midst. If it's consistent wisdom and you have that to give to some young lady, I think being present, being someone that can pray for her, that can listen more than anything. And thank you so much for saying that, Tiffany. My heart just leaped when you said, take that 8 minutes, 46 seconds, if that's what it was. Take that time out and just breathe, literally. Young ladies that are going through, and for these women that have so much going on, you have so much to give. If just listen, give 8 minutes and 46 seconds to the ear of some young lady that's like, really, I don't know how to deal with this. I check in with my daughter, baby, how you doing? And she's like, Mom, I'm fine. You know, I know you're fine, but how are you doing? Yeah. You know, because I want to hear from you. I don't want to make an assumption that you're good just because you're my daughter. You know, God doesn't have grandchildren. I can't assume anything. Had a friend whose daughter took her life. One of her daughter's best friends, a few doors down. Everything was great. Everything was great. Child hadn't posted anything on social media that would give anybody a breath that something was wrong. And that baby took her life just a few weeks ago. They had her funeral just a few weeks ago. A mother taught at a local school, high school here. And mom thought everything was cool. So we don't always know. And because we're so busy doing and going and being, and it's great to be a queen. It's great to take your royal place. But also know that there's some wisdom, if you have the time, that you can share with some young heart that is looking up to you and desires to be just like you. There's nothing wrong with giving a little bit of that power, that moving and shaking, that decision making and changing the world. Charity starts at home. So whoever she is, devote just a little bit of time to just checking in. And I think that would be a great start.
Yeah. That's a blessing. I would say viewership is mentorship. And what I mean by that, if someone is looking at you and they're watching you and they're viewing you on how you live your life as a woman, and they're coming up to you and asking you, these different questions, and they're looking at you, and you may be looking like, okay, who can I connect this person with? That viewership is actually the opportunity for mentorship, for you to actually pour into them, right? And I want to point to something, is to say this right here. You're capable and you're able. God would never present an opportunity like that if he did not give you the power, if he did not give you the ability, the provision, and everything you needed to pour into that person. But remember, it's going to be his principles, right? His purpose, right? And his power, not yours. And so as long as you understand that, you become a conduit, right? And not a container. And I think that is the biggest thing you can be. And just to make sure that you reflect God's Christ likeness at all times. So that means even in your brokenness, that you share that certain level of humility. Because the reality is that everybody has the tendency to be right, but everyone conceals their brokenness because they think they're going to be shamed. And so even being able to be fragile with that person and say, hey, just because I'm this age and you're here doesn't mean I'm still not broken in some areas, because Christ says this in Philippians 1:6, being confident in this, that he who began a good task is able to complete it. So he's always perfecting himself in you. So I would say, like you said, viewership and mentorship go hand in hand. So if you're asking that question, I would ask this right here. Who around you is God pointing you to for him to be able to use you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to add one thing on top of everything they said. The one thing that I have experienced myself is that when God has laid someone on your heart, because you asked the question, so there are one or two young women in mind that you desire to mentor or to just be a friend to, or just talk to her. It's going to be a win-win, because as you pour into her, God is going to pour into you at the same time, because he leaves nothing unused. So as you share your life story with her, or experiences, or whatever it is, God is going to reveal new things to you that's going to help you to become more of a queen that we're speaking of today. So God does want you to step forward and to, like Donovan was saying before, whether it's just checking in on her, giving her one scripture a week, or any type of encouragement that you can give her, you're actually giving it to yourself, because you're allowing God to use you in this woman's life or young girl's life, and it's going to bless your heart as well. So it's going to help you to increase, because it's almost like that level of accountability that you have to yourself, and anyone that you mentor, anyone that God is using you to speak into their life. So it's going to be a twofold. So I definitely tell you to get started today, whether it's sending that person an encouragement and say, hey, I'm here for you anytime you want to talk, or if you want to, do something, or get together, or read something, or just chat on the phone about nothing. I mean, you never know what God is going to use in that relationship. So definitely be encouraged and get started right now.
Okay, our next question is, how do you help a teenager or woman that struggles with jealousy?
Lavalle?
Okay, struggling with jealousy, okay. Jealousy really just comes from you feel like, or you don't believe that God has something for you personally, that he's gonna bless you personally. So it's one of those things that you have to start, or are we helping someone else? Is that the question?
It just says, how do you help a teenager that's struggling, or a woman that's struggling with jealousy?
Okay. So if someone else is struggling with that, they just need someone to speak life and to speak the word of God into them. And it's something that has to be consistent, because maybe they don't have a consistent voice that is revealing God's goodness and his light and his word of who God says that they are. And so if you remove their eyes from what everyone else is doing and receiving, then they just need that life poured into them. And over the course of time, God will renew their mind. And so it's just a decision they're also going to have to make, that they see the blessings that God has put into their lives. I don't even care if it's just something small daily.
Right.
You know, as they receive those words, their faith is going to increase. And so it's just kind of like encouragement with prayer and just consistency in that person's life, and helping them to see who they are in God will help them to change that mindset.
And I want to add something to that as well. What popped in my spirit is also, I think it would benefit that person for them to find out what their love language is. There's this book called The 5 Love Languages. You can even take the assessment online, the number 5 lovelanguages.com, and it will help you to be able to minister to someone, because and I'm pretty sure I won't name all of them, but the 5 love languages is quality time, words of affirmation, acts of service, physical touch, and what's the other one?
I'm trying to remember.
Good affirmation.
You already said affirmation.
Affirmation.
Yeah.
I think it's affirmation.
So it's good, because I know for myself, I didn't necessarily struggle with jealousy or being envious of anyone as a young girl, but because my love language is words of affirmation and quality time, like when somebody tells me, oh, you're going to do a great job, or they encourage me, or they spend time with me, man, that means the world to me. That makes me feel like, oh, I can do any and everything. And so that is going to be crucial to how you build relationships with that woman and what you speak into their life. Because if a person's love language is not words of affirmation, they're probably going to be like, okay, that's great, but they may walk away still feeling frustrated, like they're not being seen, they're not being heard, or they're not being valued. So I would definitely say take the 5 love languages for yourself, and even for the person that you're trying to minister to, so that way you can build an even stronger relationship with them.
Yeah,
And just practice and just have them to work on their self-love, you know,
That.
putting their eyes on who they are, and not, you know, what they see in other people. But that self-love, it's a process. And so if they are around people that are helping them to see who they are, it's going to help as well, because you have to identify who am I, and learn to love self. And then the jealousy will actually begin to dissolve.
Yeah.
So self-love is key too. Joe, what were you going to say?
No, you hit the nail on the head with that, because I do believe it's tied to self-worth, as well as self-awareness of knowing who you are. Because in jealousy, I find that it's a deficiency. It's almost like, you know, when you need supplements, you know, you need a little more vitamin C, a little bit more vitamin D. It's something that you lack. You lack love for yourself, because you look at the other person and you've determined that whatever it is that they have, you should have it, that you're entitled to it. And if you don't know what your portion is, if I'm satisfied with my place in life, if I'm satisfied with the gifts that God has given me, if I'm satisfied with the things he's given me, or the task that he's given me, then I'm fulfilled. And it's a lack of, it's unfulfillment. It has its roots in unfulfillment. And it's really a deficiency. I see it as in just needing to find their place in God. When you are in your lane, can't nobody beat you being you.
Right.
You have very little time to look over your shoulder, next sister, when you're running your lane strong.
Yeah, that's good.
Oh, Tiffany, you're muted.
Sorry about that. We have room. We have room for one more question before we go ahead and wrap it up here. This question is, as women, what are a few additional tips that we can use to support one another on our journey to becoming queens?
Are you muted, Lavalle?
No.
I think
Okay.
there's some lag time on my other screen, or you just weren't talking.
I was waiting on you. No.
Don't wait on you.
Okay. Okay. What are some things that we can do to encourage some other women? Is that what you said?
Well, it says, what are a few additional tips that we can use to support one another on our journey to becoming queens?
Oh, okay. On our journey to becoming queen. What we can do is when you meet, I won't say meet, if you're developing a relationship with another woman, always know that you are in this relationship to give something to her. And it needs to be mutual, where you both are striving to grow together. So it just understand that it's a journey. So make sure that that's something that you do on a daily basis, even outside of your own life. If she comes to your heart, that means that God is saying, go encourage your sister. I don't even care if it's good morning, have a great day. Those small things go a long way. You don't have to wait to have this conversation with her, 2-hour conversation, or spend a lot of time together. It could be small things on a daily basis that you do to let her know that you are proud of her, that you want to see her grow. If there's something that she's trying to accomplish, that you want to help her. If it's something that she's celebrating, be there for her. If she is down and out, check on her. So there are so many things on a daily basis that you can do to develop a relationship with a woman. It doesn't have to be a relationship. Let's just say it doesn't have to be a best friend or someone that you've known for a really long time. It could be a woman that you just met and you speak to her in 5 minutes and you just encourage her, even in 2 minutes. You tell her how beautiful she is. You just have to make it a decision that it's going to be a lifestyle. It's something that you do daily, checking in on one another, and just small gestures. Just encouraging one another. And also, if you see a woman and you see her natural gift or any gift that she may have, encourage her and tell her how it blesses you. Because a lot of times we don't have enough women saying, you know what, you bless my life by doing this or saying that, or the way that you carry yourself, it encourages me. So if you are letting other women know how they're encouraging you, you're actually being an example to them. What does being a queen looks like? Or what does being a great friend looks like? And we don't have to be best friends. You can just even be my acquaintance and I can still give you that same love and encouragement. So it's making a decision as women in general that we are going to walk as queens, and we're going to give love to the other queens that are standing beside us, sitting across the room from us. It's a decision. And so as you do that, the one thing that God told me is that if I encourage other women in sisterhood, that sisterhood would multiply quickly. Because once one woman decides that she's going to walk in sisterhood, she's going to teach 1, 2, or more women to do the same thing, because we are all sharpening each other. We are all gleaming from each other, because the women here on this panel, I glean from them all the time, because guess what? They are giant slayers. Okay. And so I want to become a giant slayer. So I'll hang around giant slayers. And so as Donovan were saying, this is the season for us to take charge, to not be afraid to put a light on, to dim our light. Don't dim your light, because we all need one another. And so if you do that on a daily basis, it is going to be amazing. It is going to be an explosion. So your gift will make room for you. If you are pouring into other women, God will also give you something to shine with as well. So
beautiful.
That's good.
Thank you so much, you all. Was there something that you wanted to add, Donovan?
Yeah, I wanted to kind of give a spin because I know, I guess I want to serve as a blueprint from a man's perspective. Um, a deficiency in an area is a lack of sufficiency from God that you
Yeah.
maybe are not receiving. So it's a lack of, meaning that you're malnourished in an area. So, so jealousy is a sign of covetousness, meaning that you're wanting to take possession of someone's status, a possession, or whatever it is in order to feel completed. That kind of creates an issue because what you're saying is what God has given you is not sufficient, it's not enough, and it doesn't complete you. So I go back to that intimacy. How do we do that? How do we get our daily vitamins to get built up as women? You go back to that intimacy where you say, God, I'm deficient in this area, and I need you to surround me with prayer, people, purpose, and your scripture to fill me back up so I can see you as sufficient and view what someone else is doing and what they're doing and celebrate them. Because that's how you celebrate another person. And the saying goes to this, and I'll say this with your brothers and sisters in the Lord, especially women. If you see mail being delivered on the street and your sister in the Lord has got her mail, you don't get mad at what was in her mailbox. Here's the reality. The mailman's coming to your door too. So you celebrate her, you lift her up, you encourage her, you get excited and say, well, I'm gonna wait my turn because the mailman has to come down the street and deliver to me too.
And your box might be bigger.
Come on now. Come on now.
You might have a box, not a letter.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Wow, man. Thank y'all so much tonight. My heart is full. I hope for those of you that are watching, your heart is full as well. I thank you for rocking with us tonight and allowing us to pour into you. But before we go, I want to give them an opportunity to share where they can, where you can find them on their social media platforms. Lavalle, can you go ahead and share where people can stay connected with you?
Okay. I am on Instagram personally under Lavalle Ezel, and also you can follow Striving in Sisterhood on Instagram. I also have a private group where Tiffany said before, I actually post videos and teach women about the levels of friendship and just different aspects of friendship that we typically don't talk about, but needs to be discussed in order for us to grow and to work through any type of issues that we have as women. We're real emotional, and sometimes our emotions might get the best of us. And so we need to learn how to have tools, how to handle those things, and just get new perspectives and ideas. And so I do videos that you can actually watch and engage with. And we may have some more workshops online this year because right now we're not able to meet for workshops, but definitely stay connected with me. And there is, my business page is under Lavalle Ezel as well, which is Striving in Sisterhood. So you can connect with me on any of those social media platforms. So Tiffany, thank you so much for having me. And I look forward to more of Silhouette of a Queen in the future.
Thank you. And
I'm
Joe,
proud of you.
Thank you so much. Joe, you want to share with everyone where they can stay connected with you?
Yes, ma'am. And I'm proud of you as well. Thank you so much. This has been an awesome experience. Lavalle, I love you, love you, love you. And you never cease to amaze me. Tiffany, I'm overwhelmed, and we'll talk afterwards. Donovan, being our representative king, thank you, sir, for your wisdom. Yes, hold it down, Wakanda, wherever. But I can be found at www.sarisgirls.org, and that's SARAH with a Z, and then girls, GIRLZ.org, as well as www.epicdomain, EPICDOMAIN.org. Those are my two websites, and on those websites, you will find all of my social media platforms that will lead you to more information about what I do with boys and girls. That's my in the city, I don't want to say secular because I love my babies, but that's what I do as an enrichment program outside the walls of the church. And then Saris Girls is a very special initiative, enrichment program for girls that I do. It's ministry, and we pour into them. We have the most outrageous conferences, and Lavalle and Tiffany are both. Donovan might have to pull you in. We might have to have, for the brothers to speak to the sisters. So And I am very passionate about what it is God has given me to do. And I'm here for women of all ages, not just our babies, but thank you. This has been so healthy and so healing for me. And it's so needful at a time like this. So I appreciate you all.
Thank you. Dun, 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 dun. Donovan.
Yes. So outside the walls, DFW once again is an evangelistic ministry designed to bring biblical content outside the four corners of the church for people who have hard hearts and need to see Christ in his fullness, and that their hearts can be broken down off the four corners of their heart. So I bring biblical content touching very, very, very a lot of topics. The soft launch of Outside the Walls DFW will be next Friday. We will be having some promotional videos popping up for you guys. We're touching topics like fatherhood. What does the Bible say about marriage? What does the Bible say about intimacy? What does the Bible say about baptism? How to study the Bible? Are blacks found in the Bible? We're going to be biblical content so you guys can see Christ in his fullness. You can reach me on my Facebook page and my Instagram page at Donovan L. Allen. So that's DONIVAN L and then ALLEN. Or you can reach me on Facebook. And if you want to shoot an email, it's the same thing, donovanallen@gmail.com. Amen.
Amen.
All right.
Well, thank you so much, everyone. Again, thank you for watching us. And for those of you that are watching the replay, we thank you also for watching as well. Silhouette of a Queen will return next month. So I'm excited about it. And just stay watchful. You can also connect with me here, Tiffany Devon, on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Twitter, and I'm on YouTube. I have videos on YouTube as well under Tiffany Devon. So again, thank you so much for watching the first Silhouette of a Queen, but there will be many. All right, you all have a good night.
You too.
All right.
God
Good
bless you.
night.
Thank you so much, Tiffany.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
See?
See, we didn't lose you.
No, I'm still here.
Are we done, Tiffany?
Yes.
All right. That was amazing.